What's going on, everyone? Fearless Football Forecast here with some breaking news. Deandre Hopkins has signed to the Tennessee Titans. And when we say breaking news, we literally mean we just got the update on our phones. We've been hearing for a couple weeks now that Hopkins was going to sign with the Titans. I didn't think it was going to happen because it contradicted what he first said when he said that he was chasing a championship. But I guess we'll get into if the Titans even have a chance.
Yeah, when they originally came out with what teams, I hoped that he would go to either the Bills or the Chiefs for one of two reasons. One, I have him in Dynasty, so a little selfishly. And two, because I think it would have just been more fun for the NFL to see those teams, the rich get richer and just in crazy offenses. But I did expect he would go to the Titans just because in reality, the options, this means that he wanted the money more than winning a championship. He just said that more as leverage, I imagine. And if I would rather go to the Titans too. I rather go under Mike Vrabel, who is considered a good coach, but not quite as. He hammers it down, but he's not as strict as Belichick. Supposedly Hopkins doesn't really like to practice things like that. So I'm interested to see how he fits with Vrabel's mentality. But I'm pretty hyped that we're going to talk about this because we haven't got to talk about it at all whatsoever. I think that for him, for fantasy purposes, his production, it's still good for him because he's just going to get peppered with targets. It really sucks for guys who are in on a Treylon Burks or a Chigakonkwo for fantasy. I think Chig is basically everybody who's been drafting Chig lately because he's moved up to like the tight end 12 in drafts. You're kind of, that kind of sucks for you. Treylon Burks could be okay, but, at this point, really, I think for either of them to be any good for fantasy, then they would need an injury to D-Hop.
Yeah, I think, honestly, for fantasy, it's better that Hopkins went here than, let's just say, the Bills, because the Bills already have Davis and Diggs. I think maybe the best case scenario for him for fantasy would have been the Chiefs. This is an offense that didn't necessarily pass that much, but that's also a big reason why they lost their last 8 games. So if Tannehill can be healthy, there's a good chance that the Titans actually bounce back, win some games, Hopkins gets some targets. Let's not forget that Ryan Tannehill did support A.J. Brown back when Brown was on the team. Corey Davis had some success in that offense for fantasy. So I don't think it's completely bleak to say that Hopkins isn't going to, have a chance at least being a wide receiver too. I would say that's pretty safe just considering the talent. Also, I think this helps the team a lot because a lot of the reason why Derrick Henry got murdered last year was because of the fact that teams had to, load the box and stack against him. Whereas now Burks is a hell of a receiver. He might not be a true number one, especially not in his rookie year last year. But having Burks as the 2 and Hopkins is the 1, Chigakonkwo is still, even though now we're saying his fantasy value is down, which I agree with, he's still a very talented player. So I think overall this really helps the offense. I think it's going to open up a lot more lanes for Derrick Henry. I think he's probably going to be the best beneficiary out of this circumstance. And for the Titans as a whole, this just the more I've been thinking about the Titans the last couple of weeks, I've been thinking, I'm like, why are we really counting them out? They had a lot of injuries on defense last year. A lot of those guys are getting healthy. Decent offensive line. They invested a lot of capital in it 2 years ago. It didn't really work out that well, but it's not horrific. Derrick Henry's still there, and he honestly got more receptions last year than he was getting in the last couple of years. So he's still improving. Vrabel's a great coach. Tannehill was injured last year. They had Josh Dobbs starting at one point. So, and this is a year where everyone, including myself, is very high on the Jacksonville Jaguars. But maybe we're forgetting the Titans. And now, no pun intended, we might have to remember the Titans now that Deandre Hopkins is on the team as well.
Yeah, I definitely think, football-wise, it is perfect for the Titans because, like you said, he fills in the number 1 receiver role. Burks, it'll actually be good for him in the long term, I believe, because I think part of the reason he wasn't as good last year, one, he was a rookie, so you got to give him that adjustment curve. But to come in as a rookie and you're the guy, that's a hard thing to do. People have done it, but that's just not something you can rely on. I think that he's been getting a lot of buzz, and now that he's going to see number 2 receivers or number 2 cornerbacks, I think his efficiency is going to be pretty good this year. And then moving forward here on after when Hopkins leaves, I think that'll help him come into his own as a number 1 receiver eventually. And like you said, having Chig as like your number 3 option and say your number 2, that makes you actually extremely happy having that athletic and that efficient of a tight end as your number 3. And like you said, for football, I think it makes the offense kind of like live again. This makes me believe, like before this signing officially happened, what did you think was going to happen with the quarterback situation? I kind of thought that they'd start Tannehill for a few games and then they'd be like, all right, go ahead, Levis, do your thing.
I mean, I like Levis. You like Levis. I think we're higher than the consensus on Levis as a duo. But I mean, Tannehill, it's still been his team, and they've been in the playoffs every time that he's been, under center. So yeah, maybe it would. To me, it would have just been at the record. If they went 1-3, maybe they'd switch it up and just realize they're tanking for the season. But if they went 3-1, you're not going to just take out Tannehill.
Yeah.
And so you're saying you think that now this is just going to further cement Tannehill being under center for a while?
Yeah, because I think you basically it's automatically that they're going to be better on offense. I mean, the defense, it was going to be good. They're a feisty defense. Vrabel's a great defensive mind. I never really had questions that the defense was going to be weak in any sense. I think they're at the very least going to be middle NFL, efficiency wise, all that kind of stuff. But now you give Tannehill a true number 1. Defenses kind of have to stay on their heels, like you said. They can't load the box, which is going to open it up for Henry. And they're just going to be what they were kind of back when they had A.J. Brown a couple of years ago, that you have that one threat that everybody's like, oh, crap, we have to double cover them. But now I think it's a little bit better because I think that their auxiliary pieces are better than they were a couple of years ago. Obviously, we already talked about Berkson and Chig a few times already, but I think that they actually, as a core, this is one of the better cores they've had in a while now. So it's funny. I think that they're going to be competitive in games. It still comes down to me. How is the offensive line going to play? Obviously, they got Skaronski in the first. I'm interested if the offensive line holds up. I mean, I think they're going to be there's a difference between competitive teams that are competitive and still go 6-10 or whatever. Well, I guess now 7-10 or 6-11, and then there's those competitive teams that are 9-7, 9-8 now, like fighting for a playoff spot. If the offensive line holds up, I think they're definitely going to be on the competitive playoff spot side of things. Because now I think that they have the offensive firepower with the true number 1 to be competitive, like to get the ball downfield and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, here we go. Another update here with a picture of Hopkins next to Derrick Henry as well. There they are. So there we go. I mean, those are 2 of the best players of the last decade. Now on the same team, both of which are very old. But yeah, I think as far as the Titans go, it's going to be pretty hard to keep up with Jacksonville, but you never know if that was just a flash in the pan season for the Jags. But if anything, I think this just cemented them as the number 2 in the division. Like, it's going to be between them and the Jags. I think that this signing and keeping Tannehill kind of breaks the little tier break where we were thinking that maybe the Texans or the Colts could, surpass them. I think that this just puts them right above those guys. So it should be between them and the Jags. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited. Now this makes me more excited for our podcast, which is coming up next week. We're actually going to break down the entire AFC and NFC South. So make sure to subscribe, smash that like button, and we'll see you there.